Hello, Buffs. Welcome to Heard on the Go with Dr. Mull. I'm your host, Dr. Deandra Mull, Vice Chancellor for Student Life. I'm excited to use this platform to connect you with the stories, conversations, and insights to student life here at CU Boulder. Whether you're a student, Buff family member, staff, or alum, this podcast is for you. Let's get started. Hello, welcome to today's episode of Heard on the Go with Dr. Mull. I'm your host, Dr. Deandra Mull, and today I'm joined by Jill Jones, our Executive Director of Career Services and Student Employment in the Division of Student Life. Jill, can you begin by telling us a bit about what you do, your role, and how it impacts the student experience?
Sure. Thank you, Dr. Mull. As the Executive Director of Career Services and Student Employment, I help to lead the team of about 30 professional staff and 30 student employees to really deliver signature programs to students, connect them with employers, talk about what their strengths are in a skills aspect, and really help them leverage all of those things to prepare for engaging in internships and all the way through creating their professional identity in order to help them think about the world of work and what the impact they may want to have.
Wonderful. So I like to think of the career journey or that path toward exploration as one that's based in purpose and passion. What do you love about working with students? Tell me a bit about what keeps you vested in this space.
I love working with students in this space because I really do believe that career and professional development is a core value here at CU Boulder as far as what our students come to do and as they think about themselves moving towards the world of work and what type of impact they want to have around the things that matter to them, to support them in doing that. And I just really love the energy that students bring, the individual stories that they tell, and our team really helps them to package that, to translate that into a way that it is seen as valuable in the workforce. So that's extremely rewarding, both on the individual student level and then supporting the team of folks that work directly with the students to do that as well.
Wonderful. So we know that we have nearly 40,000 Buffs here, which means you have 40,000 different career opportunity or career pathways, perhaps. And some students come to the university and they know right away that they want to be a medical doctor. Others know that they're going to be a chemical engineer. Then there's some students who are like, I'm finding my way. That's okay. All those are very valid pathways. What advice do you have for a student who doesn't know exactly what they want to do now, or they're perhaps a little farther down the road? What would you say to that student?
Yeah, well, what I would say to that student is that it's a good time. It's a good time to not have to choose. I remember when I was kind of coming up through my experience of figuring out what I wanted to do, and I hear others say this as well, is sometimes you are feeling this pressure to have to choose something, the right thing. And I think we're in a space now in our world and the way that we deliver our curriculum and our degree programs where students can really blend what their interests and their passions are, and then thinking about that with a lens towards career. So instead of having to choose one thing over another, which can take your breath away as a person who is, whether you're 18 and you're just stepping foot on campus, or you're coming back to reskill, or you're pivoting in your career, that thought of just having to choose one thing and getting it right can translate into a lot of anxiety. And so to just think about what your strengths are, to learn about what those are, and to really provide the space and the grace to form what this professional identity might be, I think is a really great opportunity for students. Rather than it being something that we're fearing or that we're not sure how to move towards, it really does take that reflection of who am I? What is this place? What have I come to do? And how do I want to continue to do that throughout my life?
Well, and I think you just also hit on something that always stands out to me. What you want to do today may very well not be what you're going to do 10 years from now. We think about NACE data that tells us that students will have no less than 13 careers throughout their lifetime. Students are changing jobs, some every 2 to 3 years, some every 3 to 5 years. That's not the same as generations before them. Many of our generations some folks have been accountants for their whole lives, and that's okay. Our students, they may find they want to be an accountant on today, and then a year and a half from now, they're going to look for something else. How do you help students navigate that? Because you just really called it out, which is it can be paralyzing to just think you have to do one thing. Is that what our students really have in front of them as they think about different careers?
I think that they do have a world of opportunity ahead of them, and we hear that sometimes. And I really, really do believe that we see students coming in and the careers that they're moving towards, or the world of work that they're moving towards, is vastly different than when they start with us. So
Yes.
what I love about working at CU and working in the career services space here particularly is that our curriculum is innovative, and we're
It
always
is.
thinking about what's coming, and we're infusing that in real time into our curriculum. So we're in a space to innovate, not only in the way that we deliver our curriculum from the faculty lens and from the academic spaces, but also in career services. We're running parallel to that, and we're wanting students to be able to apply what it is that they're learning both in the classroom and about themselves in settings that allows them to try things on. So,
Yes.
some people may buy a bathing suit online, for example. I wouldn't necessarily want to buy something that I hadn't tried on, if you know what
Yes.
I mean.
Yeah.
So I
I love that.
really encourage students to try it on, walk in those shoes. You're going to learn what it is that you like. You're going to learn what it is that you dislike. And that is all valuable information when you're making an informed choice along the way. And just realizing that that's something that will evolve over time, to your point earlier, and what you're moving towards when you're coming out of college versus when you're 10 to 15 years into a career, different priorities may
Yes.
surface. And as long as you're always in tune to what's aligning with you, what's aligning with your identity, what type of environment you want to be in, what type of impact you want to have, and what that work life balance piece might look for you at any given stage in your life, I feel like you can't go wrong if you always make sure that you're tying it to yourself and what it is that you're trying to do in the world through work and through career.
And I think what you just shared is timely advice, whether you're a student coming out in year one, a year four, or a new professional in the field as well. How do you make sure that there's a values alignment between what you're hoping to get out of life and what you want your life to look like, even beyond your career, but connecting those dots? I know in student life, we talk about you don't just come to the university for an education, you come for an educational experience. Experience changes everything. When you think about what that looks like for students who are getting experiences both in the classroom and beyond, how do they connect those academic experiences to all the other parts of their life?
I think that they either have someone, and our hope is that students have somebody that they're talking to about these experiences that they're going through. And so one of the biggest pieces of advice that I do have is don't do it alone, and ask for help. A lot of our students, they get here because they're independent and because they've been grinding, and that's what we default to when we're used to doing that. And this is a whole new space where
Yeah.
it's a collective effort. It is a community of people who want to see you shine in your own way and want to support you in finding your way through that journey.
Teamwork makes the dream work. We are a team with them.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes. And so really just making sure that you're having someone that you're talking about that experience with, whether it's a faculty in office hours, whether it's a peer advisor that we have in career services, somebody who reminds you of maybe the stage that you're at or the stage where you want to be, and connecting with your peers around that through student organizations, through your roommates, through your career advisor is a
Mhm.
really good person to be having those conversations with, and beyond. Maybe you click with an employer that you met at one of our events, and that person becomes your mentor, and you talk to them about, I really am inspired by what it is that you do. And maybe you go and shadow them for a day and you
Yes.
figure out about that, what you think will work well for you and what might not work well for you. And that's just more and more information that you have to lean on along the way.
I love that. And I will say, and I mentioned this, I was meeting with, we had an all staff event earlier today, and I was saying part of my own career journey was me thinking that I wanted to do one thing, getting in that space and realizing that's not what I wanted. And that was okay. And I think as I think about where our students are, sometimes campus internships or off campus internships and jobs give them that same data. When is a good time for a student to start considering whether it's a campus job or an internship? When should they start looking at those opportunities so they can also learn and gain?
I would say there is no formula for that. There's no right time. There's no best advice. I think it really comes down to personal readiness
Yes.
and stepping outside of your comfort zone. And that can be those things can kind of tie to you or pull you, have some tension between them. But what I do think is students have to be ready to be uncomfortable.
Yes.
And that's where the growth happens. And we know that as student affairs practitioners, but it's not like we walk around with slogans on our foreheads reminding students of that. But the research shows that it is through that discomfort and that challenge, coupled with the support, an appropriate amount of support, that person to talk to about what you're experiencing, it's through that messiness that the growth happens. And students may or may not know that, but when it's happening, it's uncomfortable. And sometimes we want to shy away from that,
Yeah.
but that's
Yeah.
when we really have to lean in. And it's not just students, it's all of us at different stages of our
Absolutely.
lives. So, it's one of those things where this may be one of those big moments where that's happening for students in a way that they're away from their usual people that they may be talking to about it, especially if they're transitioning onto campus as a transfer student
Yeah.
or or coming back to reskill. Not sure of, this place and where my community is. That's why the community piece is so important. So what I would say from a timing standpoint is being willing to put yourself out there, leaving your dorm room, getting a buddy. Just like you might want to get a buddy to go to the rec center to
Yes.
figure out how those machines work, you might want to get a buddy and go to some of these events and have a little partner that you're going to do that with, and an accountability partner, somebody who you go to these things with, who may or may not have similar interests in you, and you come back and you talk about what was energizing about that, what was not energizing about that, what was terrifying about that. And the more and more you do it, and the more and more you practice putting yourself out there, the more that uncomfortable feeling becomes normal. And you start to really get the cognition part of it, which is, what is this telling me?
Yes.
How are these
Yes.
data points lining up in a way that the arrows are starting to point towards this, or the arrows are starting to point away from that. Maybe this other thing is a better fit. And that's where the grace comes in and the kindness comes in, is to allow oneself to pivot and
Yes.
allow oneself to go
Yes.
through what is like water flowing, rather than, it's this fixed goal oriented experience, and it's more of a growth oriented experience. And as long as you're rooting it in the growth and wanting to grow and learn more about how things are fitting with you, and is it a little baggy, is it a little tight, a little too restrictive, those are all things to then work through and get more information about. And I would trust that you'll land in a better space than you could have ever imagined if you kind of stick to that mentality of, I'm going to grow through this, rather than I have to reach this one linear goal.
You just said a whole sermon in that moment. I think about it through the lens of, you just move from a career plan to a career roadmap. And I think as we think about students, recognize they don't have to have a fixed plan. It is a roadmap. They're going to change their minds. They're going to shift. They're going to make mistakes along the way. There'll be things I can think about even in my own journey. I was like, if I had to do it again, I would do things differently. What are some common mistakes as students are plotting out their career roadmap that you've seen students make, that you would just say, here are some pitfalls that perhaps to think, so you might be able to avoid them?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think one of the things is just really realizing that rejection is on the road to career. So it's part of the process. So I don't know one person who has always gotten a yes and has
Yes.
never gotten a no. So normalizing rejection, and also kind of reframing this idea of defeat, because sometimes we can get defeated by what is perceived as, or what really is, a rejection. No, you
Yes.
did not get that opportunity. So rather than being defeated by that, thinking of it as a detour, right? On the roadmap, it's a detour. There's some stuff going on over there that maybe you're
Yes.
not supposed to be driving through right now. Do you have the right tires to get through that mud?
Absolutely.
Maybe you do, maybe you don't. How are your windshield wipers? Let's go this way. It's sunny over here. So I really do think that sometimes those rejections and those things that can be defeating are also opportunities for you to come across something that you otherwise may not have.
Yes.
And those are opportunities that are growth opportunities as well. Or maybe you're going to meet the person who does the thing that you're like, aha, that's really the blend that I've been looking for. I didn't even know that was a thing. And that's what happened in my career journey. Was I was going straight towards something that I knew what it was, and I knew there were 3 steps to get there, and these are the 3 things you need to do. And on my way to doing that, I found higher education was a career path, and that instead of becoming a professor of a discipline, I learned that you can teach anywhere. You don't
Yes,
need a
you can, and we
classroom.
do.
Yes. So teaching moments can happen anywhere. And that was really, for me, the world of possibilities expanded. And I think now looking back on that, I do teach every day, but I'm teaching different things to a different group of people in a different way. And I also think that students need to realize or come to terms with they are their own audience. Yes. There's a lot of static. There's a lot of noise, right, around us as individuals. It's hard to get away from. In our fast-paced culture and technology, and we are distracted at a rate that is just mind-blowing at times. And I think just really silencing that noise at times and being reflective and bringing it back to what do I think about this, and being your own audience when you're faced with those decision points and you're trying to make informed decisions. Being real close with, whose advice you're taking or what you are leaning on in those moments. And if it's more external than internal, I would like students and anybody who's thinking about anything in the career space to really bring it back down to oneself, because at the end of the day, you're the one who is your own audience when you then move through those decisions and you
impacts your life.
Exactly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, wow, that you just giving me something to think about in that space as well. I know that career services, you're having these deep conversations with students at the same time. I think sometimes we think about the resources, we think about the resume writing, we think about the career fair proper. What are other resources? How are the other ways that you all help students to find their way and path forward?
Well, thank you for asking that, because I think that that's one of the things that folks don't realize is just how extensive the resources are that we have for students. We have on-demand resources, so 24/7 online through our website, technology that you can put your resume through, whether you feel like it's dialed in and it's right there, or you're like, wow, I need to translate this experience for the first time into a resume format, and everywhere in between. And you can get feedback in different categories, and you can use that feedback and move your resume forward, or you can bring that feedback to our office and go through it with somebody and talk through it. And what does that mean? And really have, again, that support, the in-person support, along with what the technology might be telling you about your experiences, or putting them into material format so you are able to engage in going out there and being prepared to search and interview for opportunities. So we have the on-demand stuff 24/7. We have the live human that you can come in and talk to about anything. They're trained to talk about most anything as far as identity and career development. We have chatbot. So if you're in your room and you're not quite sure, where do I go and find the events that are coming up, or what is going on with career services, you can do a quick chat and get the link to where all the things are listed. And then we have things that prepare students to engage in certain ways too. So at any step of the way, just getting started all the way through, I have interviews coming up and I want to refine and prepare. We are at the ready to work with students in those in-between spaces. And it is through the work when students engage with us that we have those success stories of students being able to land their top pick of whatever the case may be, or do the abroad program that also provides them with that internship opportunity. So really kind of building upon what the students are signaling to us that matters, and giving them a way to further flush out what those plans might be, what they look like, so they're not restrictive and they're not limited.
Thanks. Well, Something you said just also resonates with me in that you talked about success stories for students. You've obviously had a lot of them. You've been able to help shape lives with your team here as well. Tell me about one of your favorite success stories for a student that you've worked with.
Yeah, those are always the most fun. They are the reason we get out of bed in the morning. They are the reasons why we are motivated by students, because we get to see the great things that they go on to do. So one student comes to mind, was very involved in our student government, did a blend of studying information science and conflict mediation, did a number of internships in Congress and Senate, and is now in DC as a special assistant in
And
the
I can tell
Senate.
you who this student is, but go ahead.
So, and that student was involved top to bottom, left notes on people's desks of just how you made a difference in their life. And what really stands out about this student to me is their ability to really maintain those personal connections along the way. And I think that that's something that we can sometimes forget to do because we're in such a fast-paced society, and we're always kind of pushing to the next thing, is always express gratitude along the way. And that's what makes that student really stand out to me, is not of what they're doing right now, but knowing that they are just going to rise and keep rising and keep rising because of that way that they're able to connect with people and make people feel, and express that gratitude along the way.
As we wrap up, is there any advice that you would give to students who, again, one day will sit in your seat and they'll be able to share with the world what they've learned and how they've applied it? What advice would you have for them?
Yeah, I think my main piece of advice is you can think of those hard times, the ups and downs, right, that we know will be on the roadmap, as well, I'm going to do this even though this is hard, even though this is not really what I thought it was going to be, or even though I don't really have the perfect suit, even though maybe the people I see in this room, I'm not really identifying with them, even though, and turning those even those into because I, and the action step that you take, because I showed up, because I prepared, because I didn't give up, because I didn't let the even those stop me, right? So I think really that pushing through and trusting oneself to do that, is it has to be part of the recipe, and really silencing the noise when the noise gets loud, and being your own audience. That's the best piece of advice that I could give.
Thank you so much again for everything you've done, everything you've shared, and everything you're doing to really give our students guidance as they move forward in their world. And thank you all for joining us for Heard on the Go with Dr. Mull and Jill Jones, who again has been an amazing guest today. Have a great rest of your week, and Sko Buffs.